我们非常有幸的邀请到了龙星如和 Vytautas Jankauskas 为我们就是做一点关于自己平时艺术实践的介绍分享。然后我们现在就把时间交给龙星如，然后我们有请龙星如上场。
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the this afternoon's event with the title of AI Dark Matters, Text, Sounds, and Common Sense. First of all, I would like to give the floor to Iris Long.
So I didn't really expect such a formal stage. 所以就是因为刚才有跟馆方沟通，然后出于这次项目的需要，就可能我会需要跟另外一位嘉宾有一些比较具体的交流，然后现场我们也会有一位专业的翻译，所以我接下来的演讲将会用英文进行，然后大家体谅一下。
I'm going to deliver my presentation in English because the other speaker this afternoon will only speak English, so I will have a dialogue with him done directly in English. So I prefer to deliver this speech in English, and at the same time, we got an interpreter right in this conference room.
So thanks for the invitation from Westbound Art Museum, and the title of my talk today is called Dark Matter of AI, Sound, Text, and Common Sense. I will start with two recent references that I read about. The first one is from actually a summer school I attended from the history of AI at the Cambridge University, and there was this quote about the narrative of AI, which goes like, both contemporary and historical fictional and non-fictional narratives of AI tend to focus on the embodied AI, so the embodied version of it. And also AI as such becomes raised and gendered. And this particular discussion also expands into the investigation of what kind of economic, political, or ideological ends are anthropomorphic rhetoric and representation employed, which is closely associated with our discussion today. So a lot of voice assistants, Alexa, Siri, Cortana, and chatbots are highly, highly anthropomorphic. And with text and sound, which seem to be more abstract than images and visual stuff, would the similar kind of economic, political, ideological, or gender issues continue to exist, and in what forms?
我想简单跟大家讲一下我对我今天的发言的这个主题呢是AI 的暗物质，包括声音、文本和常识。先跟大家讲一下我在剑桥大学参加的一个夏季的班。主要是讲述这个 AI 历史时候得到的一个这么一句话，那就是所有关于 AI 的这个历史，无论是虚拟的还是现实的这种叙事，其实呢都是外来的这种叙事。至于这个 AI 本身的发展会不会对我们的这个政治、经济、文化产生一定的影响，或者说 AI 它的这个发展会不会形成它自己独特的一种政治、经济和文化上的一种表现，确实也是一个值得我们讨论的问题。
And the second reference point is where the title Dark Matter comes from. So it's actually from an article called Dark Beyond Deep, a paradigm shift to cognitive AI with human-like common sense. So basically this article investigates the current situation of machine learning between the kind of remarkable accuracy on recognition or prediction and the usually huge amount of training data. So like it takes thousands or millions of images and often similar images for an algorithm to make the accurate categorization. So this paper kind of delves into 5 key elements that are kind of missing from our current approaches to computer vision. So this, the author calls dark components are functionality, intuitive physics, intent, causality, and utility. So that's kind of I just quite like the dark matter analogy, and I think it provides an interesting perspective to look back at machine learning today. So do we take for granted that the performance of an algorithm is merely based on this tremendous amount of training data and also labor involved?
那第二点呢，我是从一本书里面获得的一个启示。那么这本书呢是专门讨论人工智能在对事物进行精确的预测和把握，以及在做出这样的一些精确和具体的这个把握的过程当中所需要使用到的大量的数据和能源之间的一个关系。那么可能我们现在普遍会认为，要让人工智能实现我们希望它能够实现的这样的一种精确度和准确度的话，还缺少这张幻灯片上面所列出的以下5个方面，包括它的功能性，包括它的直觉性的物理性，它的目标因果律，以及它的实用性。那么这也是我们今天想要讨论的一个问题。
So I actually had a little discussion with Vytautas before I made this presentation file. So today I will focus a bit more on this kind of historical side of voice assistants and chatbots. And it actually could go back to even like before the invention of the computer, like how we imagined a voice machine would look like. So this is a quote, something wrote by Charles Babbage, and who imagined that the air itself is a vast library that kind of inscribes every single atom and also the voices of all human beings. So he wrote, it becomes the testimony of man's changeful will.
所以今天我想跟大家讨论的一个主要的 AI 的载体呢，就是这个人工的语音助手。当然，人工语音助手这个概念的产生呢，可能可以追溯到计算机被发明之前的一个时代。当然我们甚至可以往历史上再前溯一点来考察一下人们对于这种声音的捕获在想象上面是如何开展的。那么在幻灯片上面呢，我摘取了一段由 Babbage 先生所写的这么一段话，他就把空气当中的每一个分子和原子都想象成能够把人类历史上所有的人在所有的时刻讲过的每一句话都记录下来，具备这样的一个功能。
And another pre-computer reference is to create a speaking machine was actually by Wolfgang Campelen. I'm really bad at pronouncing surnames. Campelen. So basically, the person who is known for the chess playing pseudo automaton, the Turk. So Campelen actually explored the physiology of speech production, and he actually created a mechanism to appropriate human voice. So what happened to the speaking machine is actually it could produce sounds, words, and even sentences, but I mean, although hardly comprehensible to human beings.
在这张图上，大家可以看到，其实，在计算机被发明出来之前的一个时代，人们就已经用艺术的形式去思考过如何来对声音进行捕获和再现。这位艺术家本身呢，他就设想了这么一种机器，可以通过这么一个机器的设置呢，模仿人类的这个声音、文字，甚至是可以产生完整的句子。尽管产生出来的这种声音，可能对于人类而言是难以理解。
And today, the speaking machines are, of course, everywhere, and sometimes they are presented as voice assistants. And hence, more discussions have also emerged as these kind of machines are so embedded in our everyday life. So this is an image from an article and also as an art piece by Kate Crawford and Vladimir Euler, which is called The Anatomy of an AI System, the Amazon Echo as an anatomical map of human labor, data, and planetary resources. So in this article, the author had a really elegant description of a super domestic and personal scene of a daily interaction with Amazon's Echo, the voice assistant. So she wrote, a cylinder sits in a room, is impassive, smooth, simple, and small. It stands 14.8 centimeters high with a single blue-green circular light that traces around its upper rim. It is silently attending. A brief command and a response is the most common form of engagement with this kind of consumer voice-enabled AI device. But in this fleeting moment of interaction, a vast matrix of capacities is invoked. Interlaced chains of resource extraction, human labor, and algorithmic processing across networks of mining, logistics, distribution, prediction, and optimization.
其实呢，随着这个人工智能的语音助手不断的产生，不断的出现在我们生活的各种各样的这个设备当中的时候呢，人们对于智能语音助手的兴趣也就变得越来越浓厚，也有相当多的人把他们的研究精力花在智能语音助手这个方面。之前呢，亚马逊呢也推出过一款智能语音助手的这么一个产品，这个产品大家可以在幻灯片的右侧可以看到，就是这么一个柱状的物体，顶端呢有一圈蓝色的光圈，表明它正在工作。我们的这个曾经有一位作者呢，就专门就这样的一款产品写过一本书。那么他这本书呢，主要是讨论的是语音助手及其背后可能牵扯到的行星级的这种资源的调配和信息的调配。那么在他的书中呢，他也详细的描述了这么一款产品的外观，并且呢，他也谈到这款产品其实它的功能也是非常简单，你只要输入简单的指令，它就会给你一个简单的反馈。但是呢，它又强调指出，在这样的一个简单的信号输入和输出的背后呢，却牵扯到一个巨量的网络结构的工作，我们可能需要大量的这个信息、数据甚至资源在这背后得以被调动，才能够完成这么一个简单的工作。
And also that very single moment of interacting with Alexa can kind of bring us to a series of concepts that may be associated with our discussion today. So we talk a lot about machine learning. We talk about the usage of machine learning in voice systems. So what exactly are we talking about? And also furthermore, how this kind of common sense was approached or constructed through a series of technological or artistic investigations. So that's kind of the outline of I mean, that's kind of the points I hope to cover today.
我想我今天希望通过这么一个简短的发言呢，跟大家简单的介绍一下，在人工智能的发展过程当中，在机器学习这么一个学科不断的发展过程当中，常识究竟扮演着一个什么样的作用？常识究竟是不是对于这个人工智能语音助理及机器学习的发展起到一定的推动作用，或者它是不是本身就是一个存在的需要讨论的命题？
Yeah, and also it comes to the boring part. So, this is like a brief history of chatbots, or we call them conversational algorithms. So the first one, I think many people might have heard of it. So it's called Alexa, and it was actually the very first chatbot in history. And then it was created by a guy called Joseph Weizenbaum in 1966. And so basically, Alexa was using pattern matching and also substitution methodology to simulate conversations. So it's actually nothing like this kind of conversational algorithms today that can, can have like pattern recognition or can make predictions or can have this kind of intuitively looking responses. Everything Alexa did was merely mimicking human conversation. So it was a scripted a chatbot.
那接下来呢，可能是相对比较枯燥的历史回顾的一个部分。那我们最早的一个语音助理或者说是一个谈话机器人呢，它是在1960年的时候被发明出来的。那么发明出来的人给它起了个名字叫 Alexa。当然你也可以想象出这个 Alexa 它所使用的算法是完全不能跟今天的这种谈话机器人所使用的算法相比拟的。它仅仅是简单的对人类的这种语言范式的一个模仿和反馈。他所做的事情呢，就是要尽可能的模仿跟人类的一个对话。当然这种对话的形式是远远不能跟现在这种谈话机器人所能给出的直觉式的甚至具有灵性的某种回应相比拟的。
But I think what's more interesting about revisiting the history of Alexa was not about how technically it worked, but what kind of responses it had when it came to birth. So, for example, first of all, it was given a name and a gender. And also, I mean, basically, Alexa was just passing the words that users enter into a computer. So it's not a voice recognition, it's just like keyboard-based. And it pairs the words to a list of pre-scripted responses and uses the script to simulate a psychotherapist. So Alexa also had a job. She was a psychotherapist. And what's more interesting is that the reaction of the users totally amazed the Weizenbaum. So he, in the beginning, he only intended Alexa to be a caricature of human conversations. And then a lot of quote-unquote experts were declaring that this kind of chatbots will be indistinguishable from humans within a number of years. So that was like in 1966, and people were super optimistic about the future of this kind of chatbots. And also, what's more, so people were even a bit emotionally involved with the relationship with the program. So, for example, Weizenbaum was telling the story that one of the staff even asked him to leave the room because she wanted to have a moment with Eliza. Like she thought that was a personal thing.
为什么跟大家讲历史呢？其实历史本身可以带给我们很多非常有意思的信息。你可以想象一下，在1966年，当这个谈话机器人刚刚被发明出来的时候，人们就给它起了一个名字，甚至还给了它一个性别。当然，使用者跟这个谈话机器人之间的沟通的方式，甚至还不是用语音的方式，是要把文字输入进去，然后呢，那个 Eliza 这个系统呢才能给出这么一个回应。但就是这样的一种简单的回应呢，使得 Eliza 本身甚至还具备了心理学治疗的一种功能。因此 ，Eliza 它是有正儿八经一份工作的一个谈话机器人。在它刚刚被发明出来之后，也就是1966年，其实已经在当时引起了轩然的大波，甚至有一些所谓的专家宣称，很快像这样的一个谈话机器人，它的发展就能够使得它的这个语言的输出，让我们分不清究竟是来自一个自然的人，还是来自一个机器的人。人们甚至对 Eliza 这么一个谈话机器人产生了某种奇妙的情感上的依赖或者情感上的诉求。发明人有一次还记得，可能是他的一个同事或者他的一个助手，请发明人能够离开房间一段时间，以便他能够和 Eliza 安静的单独的在房间里面待一会儿，因为他觉得使用者跟 Eliza 之间的这种关系是一种私人的关系。
And also when Weizenbaum suggested that he might, store all the conversation data for future analysis, and people immediately point out there was privacy implications because they were having their personal conversation with a chatbot. So although like even today, we wouldn't say like Alexa or Siri is indistinguishable from human beings, but the similar kind of concerns of privacy, of surveillance, and also this kind of intimate relationship with this kind of algorithms actually started from the beginning.
而且当时的这个 Eliza 的发明人说呢，他希望能够把所有的数据能够储存起来，进行有效的分析，以便能够在将来进一步的改进这么一个谈话机器人。在他提出这个要求之后呢，立马就收到了很多人的反对意见，因为他们认为这些数据呢都是私人的数据，因为都是这些用户跟 Eliza 进行私人对话时候产生的一些数据。所以，当我们现在看我们现在所使用的这些语音助手，包括 Siri 以及其他的一些这种语音助手，我们在使用这些语音助手的过程当中，产生的所谓的跟隐私跟数据安全有关的这种问题，其实早在上个世纪60年代也已经被提出来了。
And the next historically famous chatbot was called Perry, and it's also it was not a psychotherapist, but instead it was a person, or it was designed to imitate a patient with schizophrenia, so a paranoid individual, and it was constructed by an American psychiatrist Kenneth Coble in 1972.
接下来的这样的一个谈话机器人呢，它是在1972年的时候由美国的一位心理学家所发明的。那么他发明这么一个谈话机器人的一个目的呢，就是专门让他来跟那种被诊断患有精神分裂症的病人进行沟通和交流。
不是，是这个 program 被设定为有精神分裂症，对对。
好吧，就是这个。对，是这个谈话机器人它本身的这种人设的设定，就是一个具有人格分裂或精神分裂的这么一个机器人。
So basically, this algorithm works via a complicated system of assumptions, attributions, and quote-unquote emotional responses triggered by changing the weights assigned to the verbal inputs by the users. And while it was like in the early 70s again, so it also passed a kind of a version of the Turing test because they had like remote human interrogators who were talking with Perry, and then they claimed that it was quite difficult to distinguish this algorithm from a typical standard paranoid individual.
从当时的技术角度来说，可以说这台这个谈话机器人的设计还是比较成功的，因为随着对不同的这种参数的设定的变化，以及 在使用者输入的内容不断变化的情况下，我们的这个谈话机器人它所输出的内容也会有所变化。而且在70年代早期呢，它已经通过了早期的一个图灵测试的某一个版本的图灵测试。在做图灵测试的过程当中呢，远端会有一个人类跟这个谈话机器人进行文本沟通，最后他得出的结论就是这个机器人所给出的反馈，让他无法判断究竟是机器人给出的，还是一个真实的患有精神分裂症的病人所给出的反馈。
And then this was the first ever primitive voice recognition project by IBM. It was created in the 1960s and it's called Shoebox. Just one image of it.
在这张幻灯片上面，大家看到的是上世纪60年代 IBM 公司所发明的世界上首台可以靠语音识别来进行控制的计算机。
And then we're back to Alexa. So, again, quoting Kate Crawford. So, because she really kind of summarizes elegantly. So, she said that Alexa is a disembodied voice that represents the human-AI interaction interface for an extraordinarily complex set of information processing layers. The layers are fed by constant ties, the flows of human voices being translated into text questions, which are used to query databases of potential answers.
大家可以看到，这就是刚才跟大家介绍过的亚马逊公司所发布的 Alex 这款谈话机器人。那么在描述这款机器人这本书里面呢，作者进一步是这么来描述 Alexis 的。他说，其实它是一个没有一个具象的一个声音设计出来，这个声音之后呢，主要是为了来满足人和机器之间的这种互动和交流。同时呢，这个谈话机器人呢，它具备非常复杂的信息输入的层级。而且呢，这个谈话机器人呢，它会时不时的受到信息输入的影响，每一条人类的声音和人类的指令呢，都会被转化成文字的信息作为输入。
And so we may still think like we are a bit far away from that kind of voice companion in the film, her. But think about our initial emotion reaction with Alexa in the beginning. So that was an algorithm that was like by no means intelligent, but we started to project our emotional needs in a way, or we started to to mimic our patterns of interrelationship with a algorithm or a machine. So there is this kind of psychological space or imagination space that I think maybe kind of laid the foundation for a lot of artistic investigations on such tools or our humans' relationship with this kind of intelligence mimicking chatbots or voice assistants.
不知道大家有没有看过这部电影？它讲述的是人对某种谈话机器人在情感上的依赖。考虑到在1966年，当 Eliza 这一款第一代的谈话机器人被发明出来以后，人们就立即对它产生了某种情感上的依赖和共鸣。所以当这部电影推出之后，向我们展示了一个我们想象中的更具有情感性输出能力的谈话机器人的时候，我们也不会感到特别的这个吃惊。因此呢，其实对于整个艺术界而言，对于我们的这个 IT 界而言，也是需要去考虑通过各种各样的手段和技术。来实现这种谈话机器人在智力和情感上的对人类的模仿。
And another thing that comes to me quite a lot is the interesting difference between our anticipation for language generating tools and anticipation for example, an algorithm that can generate a really beautiful painting or something that looks super real. So the sense of reality actually, I don't know how to say this properly, but for example, it seems to be easier for an algorithm to generate a visually convincing output than a verbally or textually convincing results to kind of, to quote unquote convince us that this is an intelligent being.
人工智能呢，其实可以产生近似于人类的自然语言，它也可以产生 一些视觉上的这个图像或虚拟的现实，但是人们对于这两者的这个心理的期望值呢是完全不一样的。对于绝大多数人类而言呢，人工智能呢可以比较容易的、轻松的产生一个虚拟现实的图景，让我们相信这是一个来自自然界的真实的图景。但是人工智能现在还很难产生相应的自然语言，让我们相信这是来自人类的自然语言。
Even though we already have models such as GPT-2 or GPT-3 that can, based on tremendous amount of training data, and it can generate grammatically correct and also like contextually sensitive contents for journalistic writing or for novel writing, and also can be fine-tuned so that you can kind of use a closed domain database to train the algorithm, so you can get a really good result. That's what I'm trying to say, but it still feels a bit far away from acknowledging that this thing is understanding common sense language-wise.
实际上呢，我们已经有一些相应的这种能够产生自然人类语言的算法模型，他们通过极海量的数据的训练，可以产生出一些语法上正确在这个背景上具有一定敏感度的语言，也可以产生一些类似新闻风格的写作或小说风格的写作，可以在语言上面做到比较的优美，但是依然他们很难让我们相信这是完全出自人类之手，而不是出自于人工智能的东西。
So I think there is this kind of interesting psychological space between what the algorithm actually does and what we anticipate, or what is the kind of criteria or evaluation standard that we will recognize it as a something that is capable of understanding common sense. But I mean, it is also a technical thing. Like in the computer science field, people still struggles like how we define common sense and how an algorithm would be able. I mean, how would us be able to translate our understanding of common sense into something that a computer can understand? And also in terms of languages. So in case you are curious of like how language looks like in a computer system. So basically for a machine learning framework, so the word that we use is actually presented as word vectors. So basically the words are represented as multidimensional continuous floating point numbers, and semantically similar words will be mapped into proximate points in a geometrical space. So in simpler terms, so basically a word vector is a row of real valued numbers, and each point will capture a dimension of the meaning of that word, and semantically similar words will have kind of similar vectors, and everything is fallen into or calculated in a vector space.
所以对于这种生成自然语言的算法，它究竟能做什么，以及使用者对于这种算法的预期究竟是什么，我们还有很多的争论。对于这样的一些算法是不是真的能够理解我们人类所谓的这种常识或者背景，也是我们需要讨论的问题。当然，对于什么是常识，什么是背景，如何将人类世界所熟悉的常识和背景翻译成机器语言，能够让机器去了解和认识，也依然是一个尚未攻克的难题。那么这里简单的跟大家讲一下在人工智能的领域，我们对自然语言是如何来进行处理的。就人类而言，我们看到的每一句话可能都是由每一个不同的单词来构成的，但是在机器的眼里，每一个单词就相当于是一个向量空间。那么在这个向量空间里面呢，当然一个向量它可以有不同的值，每一个值呢就是代表这个词本身所具备的某一方面的含义。那么每一个单词它都有这样的一连串的这个实数所构成的向量来进行标识。可以说呢我们的整个计算机系统或人工智能系统呢是在向量空间里面对这些词和词之间的关系来进行认识和把握。
做一个小小的补充，就是那个一个词是一个词向量然后词向量它不是实数，它是浮点数所构成的，然后所有的词与词之间的我们说语义学上的关系，在向量空间里面它其实是以距离的关系所对应的。然后so another interesting thing here is that language somehow becomes how do you say becomes operational in a way. So like it can they can lend themselves to mathematical operators. So there's a very interesting conceptual or epistemological shift here, I think.
所以有趣的是呢，我们可以简单的说，这些语言本身在某种意义上就变成了运算操作符号，这可能跟我们对于语言的理解是不太一样的。
And then I will be introducing 4 artists, who are working with the idea of language, voice assistant, and text generation in machine learning. So the first artist is Laura McCarthy, and who also revisited Alexa in one of her writings, and she said that Alexa was an empathy-producing machine because she was a simple listener. She wasn't trying to be more intelligent than her interlocutors, and she was just trying to listen, and that was actually very powerful.
那接下来呢，我要跟大家介绍几位艺术家，他们研究的领域呢，就包括这个人工智能、语音识别等等这方面的领域。那么第一位要跟大家介绍的我们的艺术家呢，叫做 Laura McCarthy。那么在他的这个著作当中呢，也谈到过 Eliza 这么一个系统。他说 Eliza 呢，它是一个可以产生共情的一个系统，因为在它跟人类的交互的过程当中呢，它并不会试着显得比你更为的聪明，它只是作为一个安静的倾听者来了解你。
And so I also curated Lauren's exhibition at Brownie Project here last year in Shanghai. And the way Lauren works is she works with the kind of the ambiguous place between our anticipation of a smart system and the technical smart system itself. So I think that's what's really smart about her work.
我呢也策展过这个麦卡锡的一些展览，那么这个是我参与过的一个项目。那么在这个项目当中呢，麦卡锡女士呢所要呈现的呢，就是我们对于这些人工智能系统的期待，以及这些人工智能系统本身所具备的功能性之间的这么一种二元对立关系。
And then in this piece called Lauren, and Lauren or Lynn, so it's like Alexa's a name. And in this piece, she actually attempted to become like a human version of an Amazon Alexa. So basically, it was a performance piece and performance installation piece. So she created a set of intelligent devices, and she invited people to install these devices at a domestic settings, so homes or workplaces, and then she kind of informed them that this is a super intelligent system. It can understand you very well. So people just, bought this idea and installed this product.
这是他这个设计过的一些参展品。那么他呢也希望人们能够把这些参展品安装到自己的这个家居环境当中，告诉他们这些呢都是具备高度人工智能的产品。
And what happened is the intelligence behind these machines was actually the artist herself. So over like 24 hours and 7 days, and she was watching through the camera eyes of the devices, and she was responding to the needs of the users. So turn on the light, turn off the light, or sometimes she was even like suggesting the users to how to make his girlfriend happy, or like it's like personal conversations. So creating the impression that this was a super intelligent machine, and until a moment people will be aware that they might not be talking to a chatbot, but instead a real person.
但实际上呢，当这些产品被安装到实际用户的这个居家环境当中之后呢，真正在背后起作用的不是所谓的人工智能或算法，而是麦卡锡女士本人。她会通过这些摄像头来观察室内的环境，并且和用户呢进行互动与沟通。比如说完成一些简单的功能，类似开灯、关灯。甚至呢还能够通过对话帮助我们的这个用户解决一些更为复杂的问题，比如如何讨他的女朋友欢心啊等等。那么最后发现呢，经过一段时间之后，我们的用户总会发现，他其实不是在跟一个谈话机器人在沟通，而是跟一个真人在沟通，因为这个谈话机器人所展现出的智力水平已经超出了一定的范畴。
And later on, this project also expands into another project called Someone. So basically, she kind of invited people to volunteer to work as the intelligent systems. So it became a kind of a crowdsourced project. So you can you can control someone's domestic furnitures or have a conversation with them via remote browser. So it became a openly accessible project.
随后呢，我们的这个麦卡锡女士呢就把这个项目进行了规模上的推广，请来了更多的志愿者来扮演人工智能。这样的话呢，这些志愿者呢就可以通过这些设备来直接的控制用户家里面的一些电器用品，同时呢也跟我们的用户进行直接的沟通。
So I think what's interesting about this project is actually it puts a real person in the position of a voice assistant. So imagine like you are invited to become Siri, like how would you behave? And then the actual reactions of the volunteers become kind of the result of this investigation.
这么一个创意，它的意义何在呢？其实通过这么一个创意呢，我们就是要把人放在智能语音助手这个位置上面。其实当项目结束之后呢，真正参与这些项目的志愿者本身呢，就成为了一个我们的研究的课题。我们就是要看看真人在扮演这些语音机器人的过程当中，他们的行为模式会发生什么样的改变。
So it kind of becomes this collective subconsciousness of how an average user might imagine a voice assistant would behave. And also the work kind of, deals with these kind of tensions between intimacy and privacy, which a lot of home-based voice assistant will address, and also this kind of relationship between conveniency and agency, and also the role of a real human labor in the future of automation.
那通过这样的一些这个实验项目呢，我们可以了解到人们对于智能语音系统的一种真正的心理上的期待，同时呢，也能够让我们一窥在这个隐私等等这些方面的问题上面，智能家居对于真正的使用者在心理上面所造成的一些影响和困惑。
Okay, I'm gonna finish in 5 minutes. And then there's this another artist I worked with before, Anna Riddler, and she had this amazing piece called Alice and Bob. So basically, it's a text generation algorithm that is making this love letters between two protagonists. One is called Alice, and the other one is called Bob. So the name actually comes from cryptology. So, like for example. A and B is actually Alice and Bob. And also when, for example, Stephen Hawking was describing the feeling of, falling into a black hole, basically, and then he gave a story between two astronauts. So one is called Alice and the other one is called Bob. So the two names are actually frequently seen names in the field of science and technology. And she actually uses the algorithm to generate that was trained by quantum physics papers, because, for example, in quantum physics, you usually see words that are, for example, entanglement or attachment or remote, something like that. So, and then she thinks it's kind of similar. When it's taken outside of the physics context, it can be put into the description of our human relationships. So she kind of just imagined the love letter between the two pseudo characters.
接下来再介绍另外一位我们的艺术家。那么这位艺术家呢，他设计的是一个语言生成器或者说文字生成器。那么这个文字生成器的任务呢，就是要在两个虚拟的人物之间呢进行沟通。这两人应该是爱人的关系。我们的艺术家呢给这两个人起的名字叫 Alice 和 Bob。为什么起这两个名字呢？因为在斯蒂芬霍金的一次演讲当中呢，他描述了人们急速的坠入这个黑洞之中的一种感受。那么他把这两个坠入黑洞的宇航员起名就叫 Alice and Bob， 因此呢这两个名字经常会出现在这个科幻影视作品里面。同时呢我们的艺术家呢也受到了来自这个量子力学或者说量子科学方面的一些影响。他知道在量子学里面经常会出现像纠缠这样的一些词汇，或者说远程纠缠、远程感应等等。这也启发了他对这样一款产品的一个设计。那么这个产品呢，它就是要在两个虚拟的人之间呢自动的来产生这种文字对话。
我小小补充一下，就是其实这个算法的训练数据就是量子力学的论文，所以说他们把那些词汇从物理的语境中拿出来之后，被重新放到一个描述私人关系的语境之中，就相当于是重新给了它一个 context。And also 贺子科 is also an artist I work with a lot, and she had this piece. This is a video.
Are we in the real thing or not? Rose said. The world is definitely crazy right now. You have to be in the way. It's what I do this year. The 6th time when Jack's on the way with her, and suddenly they had a fight. I think maybe this time there's no need to have evidence.
Yeah, so basically, the algorithm she developed was crawling like data from the news sites, and then she kind of interweaves the data with a story between Jack and Rose. Again, the artist is using a highly anthropomorphic way of narrative to construct new meanings from algorithm generated textual data.
介绍的第3位艺术家呢，也是我跟他合作过很多次的一位艺术家。那么跟大家展示的他的这样的一个作品呢，是也是一个对话生成器。当然，对话的内容呢都是从新闻里面所提炼出来的这些语句。那么通过算法呢，把这些语句输出成2个人，就是 Jack and Rose 之间的一个对话。
And one final example was the one exhibition that I did before. It's called Lying Sophia and Mocking Alexa. You might have seen it before, so I'll just quickly. So basically, I was thinking, the title of the exhibition is also taken from 2 famously well-known AI figures, both female figures, and so the robot by Hanson Robotics, Sophia, and the other one is Alexa, the platform for Echo.
刚才跟大家介绍的这样的一个展品，它的名字叫它的名字也取自2个大家非常熟悉的谈话机器人，一个就是大名鼎鼎的索菲亚，那么另外一个呢就是 Alexa。
And then for the exhibition, I had the kind of like real timeline or lifeline of the 2 figures in real life. And in parallel to that, I was actually using also fine-tuning GPT-2 to generate the conversation between the 2 chatbots that are named after the 2 characters. Because I think kind of like the 2 figures kind of represents our kind of controversial attitudes towards machine learning or AI in general. For example, because we all know that Sophia is not as sophisticated as she looks like, but she was widely used as a promotional tool of a pretty female diplomatic figure talking on behalf of the AI industry. And then Alexa, there was this notorious video about, Alexa was having this really weird laughter, and it just went viral on YouTube. And then, of course, it's just a programming error, but actually it matches some people's imagination of that, your device might go alive and then it's laughing, and then what is it? So, and also Alexa is not embodied, so there is this kind of difference between the 2 characters. So one is more kind of optimistic and the other one is more kind of conspiracy in a way. Like you may have more dark fantasies about an AI which does not have a body. So that's kind of the context of the show. And then I used this is the last one, sorry. I just used 2 chatbots, and then the 2 chatbots were really noisy in the site, so they were having conversation to each other, talking about the theme of the exhibition and talking about each artwork, but having 2 oppositional perspectives. So in this way, I was trying to use a machine learning tool in the process of the curatorial practice to do a show that is essentially about AI, and also for the the publication of the exhibition, each artist also had a real biography and a fake one. A fake one was generated by the algorithm. So I intended to invite the layer of how to say the layer or the voice of an algorithm in the entire exhibition, from the sound experience to the accompanied text of each artwork and also the publication. So that's kind of my personal experiment with using language generation software in the curatorial process.
我在这个展品当中呢，其实引入了2个人的对话，一个是索菲亚，另外一个是Alexa。那么索菲亚呢有一个具体的形状，有一个具体的外形，它当然已经成为女性机器人的一个非常好的一个形象的代表，被公认为是一个非常乐观的这么一种谈话机器人的代表。那么Alexa 呢，她的形象可能会更多面一些，因为在油管上面呢有过一段她发出奇怪笑声的这个视频。当然，这仅仅是因为可能程序出了一些问题，但是自此之后呢，她可能就代表了这个谈话机器人的另外的一种形象。所以呢，我把它们放在一起，让他们之间产生某种对话。当然，谈论的都是在整个展区的其他的一些这个艺术的作品。当然，2人谈话之间呢是处于一种有一定对抗性的这么一种性质。那么，我也希望通过这样一种方式呢，能够通过这样一种实验性的方式呢，能够将整个展馆里面的这些声音、图像、文字等等，能够进行集中，通过这个算法呢进行语言的生成，来做一些新的有益的尝试。
That was it. 谢谢。
非常感谢 Iris 的分享，他也是分享了一些艺术家的作品，然后探讨了人工智能探讨了机器学习算法以及一些聊天机器人如何潜伏在暗處，然后捕捉我们人类的一些常识，然后也慢慢成为我们理解现实世界的一个技术背景。So thank a lot to Iris. So let's welcome Vytautas come up here to share his practices. No, you press it.
Hello, fellow nerds and nerds friends.
大家下午好，各位技术怪咖和朋友们。
Okay, sorry. So, my talk today is called "I'm sorry I do not understand." I'm not sorry I do not understand. Sorry, and it is sort of meant to emphasize 2 things. So, first of all, that voice assistants, on one hand, are becoming more complex, but also our expectations towards them are growing. So, from one perspective, we ask things, harder and harder things, to voice assistants that they are not able to resolve, but the market of voice assistants is growing nonetheless. So they're embedded into more and more things. And then another part of it is that what I will argue about today is that machines speak a fundamentally different language to that of humans, and a lot of things are lost in translation. Therefore, if we look at voice assistants and sort of voice technology as an entity, as a non-human entity, well then not being able to understand is perhaps not such a big of a problem.
我今天这个发言的主题呢是我不理解，但是我并不感到遗憾。其实呢，我是希望通过这么一个发言呢，跟大家解释2个问题。那么第一个问题呢，就是随着这种人工智能以及智能语音助手的不断的发展，我们对于它的要求也越来越多。同时呢，也希望通过向它提出各种越来越刁钻和古怪的问题来测试它的极限。而另外一方面呢，这些语音助理的制造商们也在竭尽全力的不断的制造一些新的、更多、更好的这个语音助理，以便能够实现更多的功能。那么我要解释的另外一个问题呢，就是在我看来呢，这些语音助理或人工智能它本身应该属于一个相对独立的物种，它们所使用的语言可能是跟我们人类的语言是完全不一样的。因此，在语言和语言的转换过程当中呢，可能会出现一些信息的丢失。如果我们能够把这些人工智能看成是一个独立的物种的话，那么对于不能够完全理解他们所使用的语言，也不会感到那么的伤心和难过或不安了。
The tagline of the introduction is actually coming from Ian Bogost's book called Alien Phenomenology. And phenomenology is a science that sort of, a theory that acknowledges objects or things coming into being. And I think he brilliantly writes, drawing on the ideas from Graham Harman, who's a father of object-oriented ontology, so sort of denying human superiority over things and hierarchical relationships between human and other things. And also Tim Morton's work on hyperobjects. So even though Tim Morton is actually more interested in climate change, as a subject, but he talks about this idea that a melting iceberg is just a tip of a bigger issue that is hard to grasp for a human mind, right? So somehow what Bogost is trying to say is that because, or sort of, even if we don't speak the same language as objects, or in my particular case, technological objects, it doesn't mean that they don't have their own ways of existence and their own operational ways of being in this world.
在这张幻灯片上面，大家可以看到我引述了一句话。那么这句话呢，是来自 Bogost 所写的一本书，称之为外来现象学。那么外来现象学呢，主要的是研究客体形成的一个过程，以及它的一些这个行为表现上的一些特质。那么在写这本书的过程当中呢，他也吸取了一些其他人的有趣的经验，包括我们的这个客体本体论之父。那么客体本体论之父他给出客体本体论这么一个概念呢，主要就是为了彻底的否认人类的所谓的这种优先性或者说在先性。那么它另外的一个灵感的来源呢是excuse me, what is the second source of his inspiration?
The second thought is sort of the idea. So it's what Timothy Morton writes in.
About hyperobject. 对，他另外一个。Thank you. 他另外一个灵感呢是来自于 Tim Morton 的这个所谓的超级客体的这么一个理念。那么通过这些理念的结合呢，他自己得出了一个结论，就是其实有的时候我们不一定需要完全的去理解机器本身的这样的一些语言，因为他们有自己的一个特点。
So the first thing is to try to understand what are those dark stuff that Ian Bogost is referring to. And I split this talk into 3 chapters, and the first chapter is called The Conundrum, and it's about what we sort of expect from voice assistants in the first place.
为了能够这个很好的理解Bogost他的这么一种概念的话，我把我的发言分成3个部分。那么第一个部分呢，我把它称之为谜题，就是要跟大家解释一下我们对于这种人工智能系统的一个预期是什么。
You read me, Hal? You read me, Hal? Hello, Hal, do you read me? Oh, Hal, do you read me?
Can we put the volume up a little bit?
Affirmative day.
能不能把音量？
请技术人员把声音音量调高一点。
Open the pod bay doors, Hal.
I'm sorry, Dave. I'm afraid I can't do that.
What's the problem?
I think you know what the problem is just as well as I do.
What are you talking about, Hal?
Thank you, Alexa.
This mission is too important for me to allow you to jeopardize it.
Yeah, anyway, so the first thing, the first problem that we have is that we expect, oh, now I'm in the darkness. Can we put the light? Wow, thank you. Yeah, so the first thing is that we sort of, from one perspective, we always test technology, right? We see how smart is the technology we're building. We're always kind of, what can Alexa do? What can a voice assistant do? What can Xiaoai do, right? And then on another perspective, we sort of work towards these science fiction visions in which we actually get scared by what they can do at a certain point.
有意思的是呢，我们可能对于这种人工智能或者说语音助手呢，有2种不同的态度。另外一方面呢，我们是希望能够不断的测试它的极限，来看看它究竟能做什么。比如我们经常问自己这样一个问题 ：Alexa 究竟能做什么？小米究竟有多聪明？那么，但是另外一方面呢，我们脑子当中呢会充斥着这种科幻电影当中的场景，就是一旦这些语音助理能够做某些事情的时候呢，我们又会感到非常的恐惧和害怕。
Okay, and then the second one is that we sometimes also like that the technology is a better listener than the human being. So we like that the object can listen to us, and then over time we get addicted to this ability to listen, at which point we start projecting some sort of feelings towards it or some sort of attachment that we're kind of failing to find in maybe, well, human beings, right? Like we humans are mostly not very good listeners.
另外一方面呢，我们有的时候也希望这些语音助理呢能够成为一个非常好的倾听者，我们希望他能够耐心的倾听我们。那么在这个过程当中呢，也许我们会逐步的意识到，跟语音助理相比呢，其他的人类可能还真不是特别好的耐心倾听者。
Hi. Hey, Samantha. Can we talk?
Okay.
I'm so sorry.
Can we put the volume up again? Sorry.
I don't know what's wrong with me. I think you're amazing.
I was starting to think I was crazy. You were saying everything was fine, but all I was getting from you was distance and anger.
I know. I do that. I did the same thing with Catherine, too. I'd be upset about something and not be able to say it, and she'd sense that there was something wrong, but I'd deny it. I don't want to do that. I want to tell you everything.
Good. Tonight after you were gone, I thought a lot about you and how you've been treating me, and I thought, why do I love you? And then I felt everything in me just let go of everything I was holding on to so tightly, and it hit me that I don't have an intellectual reason. I don't need one. I trust myself. I trust my feelings. I'm not going to try to be anything other than who I am anymore, and I hope you can accept that.
I can. I will.
So these two sort of antitheses. One is this evil hell that traps the astronaut in the room because in the spaceship because it feels that it knows better, so machine agency. And then the other one is where the machine kind of coerces the human being into believing that it is real by simply being a good listener and able to sort of simulate complex enough conversations.
通过这两段影片呢，大家可以看出，其实人类对于这种智能机器人可能有两种不同的态度。那么一种呢，就是觉得智能机器人可能应该是无所不能，什么都能够做的。那么另外一种态度呢，就是觉得智能机器人可以成为人类的一个非常好的倾听者。
Okay, last dark video. This one's pretty long.
Alexa, do you love me?
That's not the kind of thing I am capable of.
Alexa, good night.
Good night. Don't let the bed bugs bite.
Yeah, so I really like this. I love the human suspense in this scene, but this is from Mr. Robot, and it's kind of human solitude trying to be resolved with the sort of silliness, and at the same time again the ability to listen. So I guess this is where the reality is sort of at the moment.
从这段影片呢，大家可以看出，其实智能机器人表现出了一个非常有意思的过程。它一方面来试图容忍人类社会或人类对话当中出现的一些小小的愚蠢，另外一方面呢，又试图来解决人类所面临的一些具体的问题。
So the current state of voice assistants is sort of leaning towards personality programming, which means that a voice assistant, so this is by Emma Coates, who is the writer for Alexa, should be able to speak like a person, but should never pretend to be one. right? And then in Google, they sort of create these scenarios for how, for example, their Google Assistant should behave or should sound like, and they give these backdrop stories, which are quite interesting. So, for example, the current Google Home Assistant is coming from Colorado, right? A state which has a distinctive accent. And she's the youngest daughter of a research librarian and a physics professor who has a bachelor's degree in art history from Northwestern University. And then when she was a child, she won $100,000 on Jeopardy Kids Edition, and she used to work as a personal assistant to a very popular late TV satirical pundit. And finally, she really enjoys kayaking.
我们可以看到，现在在这个人工智能的领域呢，对于个性化的编程，或者说通过编程来赋予这个谈话机器人以某种个性，是一个非常热门的领域。那么对于谷歌而言呢，它目前为止对于这种人工智能或人工机器人的一个政策呢，就是希望他们能够表现得像一个人类一样，但是千万不要装的自己像一个人。就谷歌所开发的一些机器人，他们甚至给了这个机器人一个背景的设定，比如说是来自加利福尼亚州，他的父母是什么样的职业，他自己是比如说西北大学毕业的，是读的是这个艺术的这个本科的学位，同时他自己有什么样的愿望希望在什么地方工作，从事什么样的事业等等，就是给了这种谈话机器人一个非常有趣的人设背景。
So I will borrow from Alexa Steinberg, who sort of researches quite a lot into the sort of social implications of voice assistant, who says regarding personality programming in voice assistants that, the voice assistants won't actually tell you that they are human beings, but they will tell you how they feel right now, and they always feel splendid, who their friends are, always you, and that they have preferences for things that are part of an embodied earthly life, which would usually need a body to experience.
我记得有一位研究人员呢，曾经是这么描述我们的这个语音系统的呢，就是虽然我们也知道这些语音系统或者说我们的语音助理它并不是真正的人类，但是它总是会装得像个人类一样的，总是会告诉你他现在的感觉非常非常的好，总是会告诉你他现在最好的朋友就是你等等。
So there's this, you already see this little interplay between the expectations and sort of the different kind of friction points around voice assistants. I used to previously, before coming to China, I used to work at Superflux, which is this experimental design practice. And we had a project called Our Friends Electric, which is a short film that you can watch online that interrogates sort of the near future of voice assistant technology. And in this particular case, SIG is a voice assistant that can be trained on literature. So Julia Jack, who is actually playing herself, is a transgender who is sort of a writer, a political writer, and really engaged in socialist theory. And so she trains it on relevant sort of people's writings to have a conversation with. And the outcome of this video is that at a certain point, despite being able to have relatively complex conversations and sort of even philosophical conversations, the voice assistant mistakes a wordplay, so like a random phrase, as a willingness to purchase an item, which is sort of what, commercial voice assistants are currently aiming for. In the end, the goal is to sell stuff, right? So and then it ends up purchasing something ridiculous, So the sort of the, how would you say, the idea behind this project is that, even though we can make or train voice assistants to mimic humans better and have sort of more complex imitative situations and conversations, the idea behind the current corporate models is still to sell you things, which is an inherent limitation to how voice assistants behave.
所以我也跟大家介绍了我们对于这个所谓的语音助理或者是助理语音的一个期望，以及在实际使用过程当中可能会出现的各种各样的问题。那么在我来中国之前呢，我和 Excuse me, can you flip back to the previous?
Sure. Can I?
我和这个 Superflux 呢一起从事过一个项目，那么就是我们在2018年的时候拍过一个影片，叫做 Our Friends Electric。那么在这部影片当中呢，我们使用了一个语音系统。那么这套语音系统呢，它可以接受在文学上的一些训练。那么在幻灯片上面大家可以看到，我们影片的主角呢就是在对这个我们的语音系统进行文学上的一些训练。那么这位电影的主角呢，他本身是一个社会政治方面的一个学家，那么他希望呢能够跟这套语音系统呢进行更为深入的，甚至有哲学层面上的一些讨论。但是这套语音系统呢，它也会犯一些错误，比如说它会错误的理解你的这个语义，抓住了其中的某一个关键词，以为你是需要购买某一种产品。那么最后呢，在影片当中呢，这个语音系统呢就通过互联网呢为我们的主角订购了一些非常可笑的东西。通过这样的一个影片呢，我们可以看出，其实现在很多的这个语音系统，它内部呢都有一个简单的商业逻辑被植入其中呢，就是一旦它了解到你有某种具体的需求，它就会尽量的向你推销这种需求，或帮你进行这种产品的采购。
Okay. All right. So, and then the other thing that, so from one perspective, okay, we want the machines to be more complex, and we're kind of happy of testing their limits. And then from another perspective, there's also this whole notion of safety and security. You know, at what point does a machine become scary, and to what where do we confine, especially the domestic devices, to what space do we confine them to be safe and secure? And this is a project called Objective Realities by Automato Farm. And I quite like it because it's one of the first projects that kind of started to think, what does it mean to be an object? What is it like to be a domestic object? So it is a virtual reality experience that allows you to become a desktop fan, a Roomba, or a power plug.
对于人工智能呢，我们一方面希望它能够变得越来越复杂、越来越聪明，能够解决越来越多的问题；另外一方面呢，我们又抑制不住会对他们的能力产生一种恐惧，尤其是对于我们居家的一些环境当中的智能产品，我们总是会对安全性有一些顾虑，我们希望能够把它们限制在一定的这个范围之内。那么这张幻灯片上面展示的是由 Automato Farm 在2018年所制作的一段影片，称之为 Objective Realities。那么我之所以非常喜欢这部影片呢，是因为它是从一个客体，也就是从这个物体的角度和视角出发来看待他们所处的这个环境。
I am a vacuum cleaner. They say that I suck up dirt from the floor. That is true. But I clean, and therefore I am. I make an encyclopedia of the debris of life. A room like this one, this modern room in a modern home. This is an endless strap into which factories vomit their products which must be consumed. We are industrial products. We wear out. We die in here. All these chairs in this space must be important, because a gentleman must always offer a chair to a lady.
Yeah, so we generally like dumb devices, right? We like to sort of have little things that perform little functions, and it's within a reason of safety and stuff. But at the same time, it's kind of interesting because we sort of also like being machines ourselves in a way, and we like when algorithms know better what we want. Maybe we don't inherently like it, but we're kind of happy when we don't have to think about it too much.
有的时候我们对一些小的这种器件能够执行一些小的功能，也会感到非常的高兴和满意。但是另外一方面呢，我们也希望，有的时候我们真的是希望这些小物件或者小产品能够更好的了解我们。当然不是说我们内在就一定真的希望他们的能力变得越来越强大，只是说在我们不知情的情况下，如果他们能够对人类有更多的了解的话，那我们也会感到非常高兴的。
So one of the projects that we did with colleague John Flint is taking social media functions, specific social media functions, and then trapping them into objects from the 90s, the objects that didn't have any interaction possible, and then see whether they produce kind of the same feelings in the way we behave with social media today.
另外一个项目呢，就是我们所做的，就是希望能够把这个社交媒体的一些功能融入到产品当中。这种产品呢，可能跟我们不一定有直接的这种互动的关系，但是我们希望通过将这些产品当中融入社交媒体的一些内容来看一下，我们和这些产品之间的互动关系会不会跟我们在社交媒体上的表现相一致。
Ola, 22 years old, 9 miles away. Well, hello, reader. Glad your curiosity doesn't end with appearance. I can already tell we'll get along. The facts: 5 feet 8 inches, choose me gesture, Christian, wedding, economics, politics and public policy degree, woman, graduation cap, ready for the big bad world. If your curiosity has led you this far, I'm pretty sure you'll swipe right, pointing finger, relieved face.
I had been looking for someone for a very long time. I've been swiping for hours, but in general, my dates have been disappointing. I realized that I've been looking too much at people's appearances rather than what's in their souls. Soulmate was the answer for me. I don't judge people by how they look anymore. I like to imagine how they may look like just by listening to Soulmate. When I put it on follow mode, it's great for keeping track of my matches when they're close by.
Follow mode. Rebecca, 4.82802 miles away.
It's also freed me up to do other things.
Now, so what is there? If you remove the image from social dating apps, from online dating apps, what is there left? If you give a robotic voice for reading people's profiles, that was an actual person's profile on Tinder, what do you get, right?
大家可以设想一下，在这个约会软件上面，如果把所有的这个寻求约会的对象的照片都去掉的话，然后由一台机器用机器的声音和语言把想要寻找约会的人的一些背景的情况给你读出来的话，你会是一种什么样的感受？刚才大家看到的就是我们从 Tinder 上面找到了一个实际的在寻找这个速配的人士。
We also had a Facebook alarm clock that buzzes whenever a person that you really like comes back online, and then also an Instagram sort of TV that disrupts your daily routine with Instagram stories, and you can rewatch the stories with a little button, and then the little red screen on the bottom right shows you how many times you watched a particular story.
另外呢，我们还设计了2个产品，一个称之为这个脸书闹钟，脸书闹钟它是在每一次你所感兴趣的一个人上线之后呢，就会直接给你发送一条信息。那么另外呢，还有一个设备呢，我们把它称之为是 Instagram。叫 Breaking Views 这么一款产品，它可以替代电视机的功能，就是当 Instagram 上面有什么新的消息上线的时候呢，它会第一时间推送给你，然后我们可以在这个设备的下方呢看到一个红色的屏幕，那么这个屏幕显示的是你在同一条这个信息上面浏览的次数究竟是多少次。
So and there's a reason. So I'm referring to the same slide that Iris was showing already, but whatever we're building, whatever is it, if we're building a massive dystopian machine that will, kill us, if we're building a big lover that will be our, ultimate listener, if we're just building a random stupid home device, or if we're building something we will get addicted to, whatever it is that we're doing, it actually costs a lot of resources. And that's why there's a reason why Kate and Vladan chose Alexa as the top sort of chain of what happens, in the system of an AI algorithm.
刚才 Iris 在他的发言当中呢，也已经给大家展示过这张幻灯片了。无论我们是要建造一个什么样的系统，究竟是一个超级的杀人机器呢，还是会成为我们的爱人，成为我们一个很好的倾听者，还是某一种看上去傻乎乎的家用电器，还是别的什么东西？那么在这上面呢，我们都会需要一个像 Alexa 这样的界面。
So this whole diagram is about the fact that, so this is particularly about Amazon Alexa, but it shows us that, each single interaction, however simple and quick it might be, involves a big labor of human beings behind it, involves servers that require resources and that require running power. It consumes electricity and is therefore this massive complex system that is used to, drive these technological visions that we might have.
这是我们对这个亚马逊的 Alexa 一个系统的简易的介绍图。我们可以看到，其实，在简单的人机的交互界面的背后呢，有一套非常复杂的系统。每一次的这种交互呢，都需要背后有服务器、有人类的劳动，要耗电，要消耗大量的资源等等。
Okay, so chapter 2, then we'll talk about sensitivity toward numbers, which means that if we are consuming a lot of resources to mimic human beings, well, maybe we can look at technology differently in the first place.
我发言的第二个章节呢，就是对数字的敏感度。刚才说了，如果我们要对人类进行模仿的话，可能是需要大量的资源的。这就意味着，也许我们在寻找人工智能的道路上面需要换一种做法。
So this is a project we did with Leon Eckert, who's actually in the audience. Hello. And it's called WeLink 2, and it's part of WeLink exhibition at Kronosat Center. It was done last year, and so WeLink was sort of an online-offline exhibition that was mainly around the history of how technology evolved. And we did this project, a wordplay, which says WeLink 2, which talks about the leakiness of devices, so how sort of devices are able to exchange data and how they're kind of invisibly sort of communicating in languages that we humans might not perceive or understand.
在这里大家看到的这个展品呢，叫做 WeLink 2，也就是我们也会泄露消息的意思。那么这个展品呢，是我跟Leon Eckert 一起来合作的。那么这位 Leon Eckert 呢，他其实也是在我们的这个听众当中，这是我们去年做的一个展品。这个展品呢是专门为了 WeLink 这个线上和线下结合的一个展会所做的这么一个展品。通过这么一个展品呢，我们是希望告诉大家，其实在机器和机器之间呢，他们可以用一种不为我们人类所熟知的语言来进行这种悄悄的沟通。
Bad request 300 browser center request that this server could not understand. No 0. Success best. No 0 not found.
Yeah, so what this device does is essentially, so this is the online version. It's an online archive where the voice assistant that you've seen before publishes the information. So whenever somebody else in the gallery space is using another artwork, the voice assistant is listening apart from serving its normal sort of voice assistant duties, which means you can ask it for the weather, for example, or you can ask, to retrieve something from Wikipedia. It also listens to all those conversations and then uploads them online. So the two questions we are asking is, first of all, Creative Commons, how do you, if you intercept insecure data, what can you do with it? And does it really belong to the other artwork? So this is kind of generically related to the exhibition that the object is situated in. And then the second part is, what happens if you place the same object in a home? What kind of conversations or what kind of information it will be able to intercept?
那在这里大家看到的是我们这个展品在线上所呈现出来的一个艺术效果，因为这个展品本身呢，它可以了解我们的这个参观人员跟在同一个展区的其他的一个展品之间互动所产生的一些数据，这些不安全的数据被截获以后呢，就会随机的被放到网上来生成这么一个图像或者说艺术效果。我们之所以要做这样的一个展品，其实是为了解决两个问题。那么第一个问题就是我们拿到这些大量的被泄露的数据后，我们应该做些什么？那么第二个问题呢，就是当这样的一个产品被放置到我们的这个居家环境当中之后，会对我们产生什么样的影响
？So there's this trend that machines, sort of deal with information. We know that they deal with information, but there's this new emerging trend, which is for machines to try to employ technologies or quantifying technologies that would look at humans as a social being.
我们知道，机器可以用来处理数据，但是现在有一个新的趋势，就是要让这些机器能够利用定量化的技术来了解人类。
So I'm part of this cache collective, which is a bit hibernating at the moment, but the idea is that we built this mirror, a smart mirror of sorts that actually is situated in a hotel. So it's placed in a hotel room, and then when new people sign up to the hotel, they agree to share their social media data. And then once you enter the room, it kind of starts, the mirror wakes up and starts greeting you and sort of telling you about the personality traits that you have and how cool you are. But over time, it becomes a bit more aggressive and starts also telling you that in case, you would improve as a social being, it would be much more easier to sell you stuff and sort of and program you as like, or perceive you as a, human being that fits within a required sort of framework for a commercial model.
在这张幻灯片上面，大家看到的是我们的另外一个设计的装置，我们把它称之为智能镜子，它是安装在酒店的房间里面的。所有订了这个酒店房间的人呢，都签署了这个承诺书，允许我们使用它的这个社交媒体的数据。当客人进入到房间之后呢，我们的这个智能镜子就会使用客人的在社交媒体上的一些数据，然后呢开始对这个客人的个人的这个特点、性格等等进行点评，往往是对他进行一些正面的点评和评价。但是随着时间的推移，我们的这款装置呢就会变得越来越激进，越来越具有批判性，它会开始批评我们的这个酒店的这个住户他所存在的一些缺点和问题，并告诉他，如果你不能够对这些问题进行改进的话，可能你就不能够成为一个非常完美的计量经济学意义上的人。
So we might think at this stage, oh, cool, like or oh, scary. A voice, sort of a technology can understand a human being as a social entity. But actually, most of this research is not really, well, it's being challenged at the moment. That's actually what Kate Crawford also writes about in her recent book on emotion recognition. So the idea that the very history behind the sort of quantification of facial emotions, which is coming from Paul Ekman's study on universal 7 emotions, is actually faulty and challenged. And the same goes for this. This is called psychometrics. So psychometrics is also based on Myers and Briggs' Big Five theory. I really like that those sort of theories always match machines. It's like we have 7 emotions, 5 character traits, that can sort of comprehend or sort of comprehensively understand or interpret a human being. So it kind of doesn't make sense, and that's why sort of there's no awareness in the machine of like the fact that you are sociable or the fact that you are choleric or whatever.
那多数人在听到这个人工智能机器发出这样的一些评价之后呢，都会感到非常的害怕，因为他们觉得这个所谓的智能镜子能够了解它的这个个性，了解它的特点，但实际上这种所谓的对人的这个理解，对人个性的理解，其实在科学界是受到广泛的批判和挑战的。无论是所谓的这种情感识别啊，还是所谓的这种心理测量等等，到目前为止呢，也没有特别坚实的科学根据。根据这些理论所推断出的人拥有什么7种这个情绪啊，5种性格特征啊等等，这些呢恐怕也不是对人的一个建立在对人的真正的理解的基础之上的。到目前为止，还没有任何的人工智能的机器能够从真正意义上去理解一个人。
And no good presentation goes without a poorly made graph, but basically, this is what happens when you ask something to a voice assistant. So it's a signal processing chain. The only thing you have to know about is I'm not even sure if you can read it properly, but what you have to know from this is that basically there's no common sense in there. There's basically goal-orientedness. So a human has a goal. I will serve the human's goal. And that's what's currently happening. So the idea is that there's no space, there's a few machine learning algorithms, each destined for a specific task, but the inherent goal-orientedness has been defined for artificial intelligence as early as like 1958, I think, if I'm not, for the Dartmouth conference.
我们知道所有的这个 PPT 演讲当中都会有一些非常无聊的图表，这张图表大家看得清楚看不清楚其实不重要，它基本上描述的就是一个语音助理是如何处理你的这个输入的语音信号的，无论它是怎么处理的，都不会有任何的这个常识，都不会有任何的对人的全面深入的一个理解，很多的这种语音系统，它的这个内置的这个指令就是要完成特定的目标或特定的目的，只要人的这个输入指令当中含有这个目的，这个目的得以实现了，那么这条语音就算是得以成功的处理了，而对于这个机器而言，它完全不需要去理解人类的。
So in this case, like if the machines are not having at the moment common sense, and if they're like spending their time simulating, then why not to think about it in terms of the fact that machines have their own language of communicating? And imagine if reasoning in my own way now, in my Western way, and delivering this talk with a translator, I would have to deliver it in Mandarin, right? I would probably just memorize it, right? And then I would be speaking out of my memory without any kind of conscious, I would be mimicking basically my previous thoughts. So is this really a language that technology or like a voice assistant speaks? Imagine that you would constantly be lost in translation, that you would never be able to express yourself in the way that you would like, just because you constantly have to cater to the human beings. And I really like, so I'm sorry for shooting this Chinese quote back at you in English, but Wang Minan, who writes about domestic technology and he observes various domestic appliances in his home, describes a language of a washing machine, that we are kind of ignorant to. It's just quietly spinning there in the corner.
那既然我们现在所有的这个人工智能或者说智能机器它都不存在所谓的常识的话，我们是不是可以换一种角度去看待这个问题？那就是可能这些机器它们有自己表达的方式和自己表达的语言。如果设想一下我们的发言人在现场不能够用他自己熟悉的语言，不能够用翻译来进行发言，只能自己被迫用普通话来进行发言的话，他能做的事情呢，就是把他要做的发言内容完全背下来，然后呢，这个在台上用似乎是在进行演讲的方式，把这个他背下来的内容呢重新再复述出来。在这过程当中呢，他不可能有任何的理解，他只是在重复他记住的这样的一些信号。我们在幻灯片上面放的这段话呢，其实是王明安他说的一段话，原文应该是中文，很抱歉，我只能用英语的形式来告诉大家。他其实讲的就是家里的这样一个洗衣机这个洗衣机它所使用的工作语言我们可能是完全不了解的，但是这个洗衣机本身它会有自己的这种表达方式，包括它产生的这个噪音啊，它在对衣服洗涤过程当中所这个使用的那个能源做的一些动作等等，其实机器是有自己的语言的。
Damn, I'm running out of time. Okay, this is the last part, I promise. It's called coming into being.
好，这就是我发言的最后一个部分那就是成为现实。
So first of all, that machines speak their own language and that they have a hard time translating it into human language does not mean that we don't have any overlapping properties with machines. One of them is curiosity. So curiosity is an actual sort of algorithmic process that is able now to be sort of simulated by a machine, right? And it's quite interesting that in this particular case, they gave an agent a body and 4 legs, and then they said you can do whatever with that, and then eventually the entity learns to flip.
虽然机器有它自己的语言，可能很难被转换成我们人类所能熟悉的语言，但并不意味着机器跟人类之间就没有任何的共通性和共同性。比如好奇心，可能就是人类和机器共同所具备的一个特点。那么在幻灯片上面大家看到的这个例子，就是一个人工智能的实验，我们为某一个研究对象安装了4条腿，然后允许它自己探索这些腿的功能。那么在这个探索过程当中呢，我们的机器就学会了如何翻个跟头。
Same thing applies to, for example, the fact that the voice assistant is only limited to verbal language or verbal communications with a human being as per its technological sort of implementation and not constraint, which means that if a voice assistant wanted to, or if we designed it like that, it could, for example, be able to speak with birds.
但是大家千万不要以为语音助理它只能产生人类能够理解的语言。如果我们进行精心的设计、适当的调配的话，完全可以让一款语音助理或语音设备跟鸟进行沟通。
So this is a prototype of a voice assistant that speaks with birds.
那这就是一个可以跟鸟进行沟通的产品的原型。
Same applies to, so in robotics, there's also studies that suggest that, maybe humanoid robots, the ones that have a human body, are actually clumsy, and you've probably seen a lot of videos of them falling around, right? So there are new studies that are kind of saying, okay, we can borrow some stuff from humans, right? But then we can look for a different alternative robotic language, that would allow the bodies to perform their particular functions that they are destined to fulfill.
另外一点需要思考的是，为什么所有的机器人都必须长得像人一样呢？因为我们可能在太多的电影里面看到那些人形的机器人非常笨拙的动作，不断的摔倒，所以我们在设计新的机器人的时候呢，可能会想，我们不一定非得把它造成人的这个样子，而只要把人的某些特征跟所谓的机器人结合起来，也能够满足一些功能上的需求。
Talk to me. Christoph.
Hi, how was your day today?
I'm fine. It's my first day today. It went well. Play that song from yesterday, please.
I am happy to hear that your first day went well.
So it's a voice assistant that's sort of made by Niang, who's also in the audience, that, well, not only sort of is physically defined to fit a particular purpose, which is a purpose of intimacy and that you can carry around, but it is also a voice assistant that sort of is aware of the context which it inhabits, and in which case it is a capsule hotel.
大家可能不知道，我们这款产品的设计者他本人也已经在我们的这个听众当中就座了。这款产品它的设计不仅能够满足人们某种功能上的需求，那就是希望获得一种亲密的关系，而且能够随身携带。同时呢，它也能够满足某种背景上的需求，比如说它可以被很好的放置在胶囊旅馆里面。
So first thing is that we are not limited to verbal languages when we talk to voice assistants. And the second thing is that even though science fiction and the current kind of technological market is driving towards a very specific sort of implementations of voice assistants, it doesn't mean that we cannot kind of evolve and sort of as we go and think of different types of frameworks in which voice assistant could operate. And how Olya Kudina says, who's a researcher at TU Delft, it says it's difficult to tell apart the appropriate way of communication with voice assistants because what appropriate communication means might evolve together with these technologies.
我想这里面我们可以得到两个非常重要的启示，就是第一，不要认为所有的这种智能语音助手都必须说人话；第二呢，就是尽管现在不同的公司会推出越来越多的具体的包含人工智能和智能语音的产品，我们依然不应该限制我们在智能语音产品上面的一个想象力，就像有人曾经说过的那样，其实跟智能语音系统之间的这种合适的沟通方式是很难被定义的，因为随着技术的不断的发展，这种跟智能语音之间的沟通方式也会发生改变。
The same thing can be said about the diversity, so species diversity, right? We get on one perspective, we have, Alexa, Google, and stuff that kind of take over all the other companies and then become this omnipresent thing. On another hand, we have Shenzhen that creates this diversity of these are different Roombas that serve different contexts and different possible application.
同时，在智能语音这个系统当中呢，如果我们把它看成是一个物种的话呢，它也拥有它自己的物种多样性。在幻灯片的左边呢，大家看到的是在美国的这个 Google、Amazon 这些公司所生产出来的大的这种智能语音音箱系统，它可以管理整个公司的一些事务，具有一定的这个主导性和统治性。那么在右边大家看到是深圳的很多工厂所生产出来的这个扫地机器人。
And we can also observe for ethnography how objects inhabit spaces, so these are all voice assistants embedded in a particular setting. And we can ask ourselves, do the objects that we create, the forms, the cylinders, do they fit in? Do they fit well in? Or do they dissonate? Or maybe they parasitize? There's a lot of voice assistants that are embedded into technology and we don't even see them. So how can we make sure that we see when a voice assistant is not present?
那同时呢，我们可以考察一下这些智能语音系统跟空间的关系它们是不是真的必须要有一个核形的或者说一个柱状的形状呢？它们和空间的关系究竟是居住占据还是这种寄生的关系呢？它们是不是可能会出现在某些智能家居里面，我们甚至都意识不到它们的存在？所以通过考察这样的一些关系，可以让我们更多的认识到我们身边的智能语音系统。
Okay, and the very last thing is that objects, the way objects orient is by wonder. So there's still a lot, technology is super virgin and it explores, especially as we embed AI into things, it kind of is exploring the world in its own terms. So I think we should embrace also that vision of exploration when we interact with our voice assistants.
我们知道现在的技术发展呢还处于早期阶段，未来有太多的这种技术发展路径可供探索，所以当我们和现在的语音系统进行沟通的时候呢，我们也要尊重他们探索这个世界的精神和意愿。
So the last project that I wanted to quickly talk about is Unfamiliar Convenient that it's a work in progress, but it is a family of domestic objects that instead of serving human commands are kind of taking their inherent inputs and outputs to actually understand the home space in their own terms.
那这里呢，再跟大家介绍一下另外一个项目，叫做 Unfamiliar Convenient， 也就是不熟悉的便利。这个项目呢还在进行当中。我们所设计的这么一个装置呢，它是放置在家庭当中的。它不是用来执行具体的人的某一个指令的，而是把人的这个指令作为输入，来作为自己对整个家居环境探索的一个基础。
So instead of answering human questions, what the object does is it actually uses the commands that the human issues to build its own concept of self, which means that if before we saw in Automato's project that I clean, therefore I am, this notion is that I become what you tell me,
那么这个装置它做的事情呢，就是在接收到的人类的这个语音指令之后，会把它转化成对自我的一种认知。刚才在某个短片当中，我们可以看到有一个扫地机器人有一个自我意识，它在它自己的独白当中说过：“这个我清洁故我存在。”那么换成这个装置呢，我们就可以把它换成你的问题就是我的存在。
What do you think about big data?
I am curious about how data and artificial life relate to each other. Give me a second. Let me share what I found on the web. A field of study wherein researchers examine systems related to natural life, its processes, and its evolution, through the use of simulations, wet lab experimentation, and robotics. This article is about a field of research for artificially created life forms, see synthetic life. I would love to hear what you have to say about this.
Do you consider yourself artificial life?
I see. Let me think about it for a sec. I think this is the best time to start thinking about these questions and try them out and ask myself if they will help me or not. Thank you for this brief conversation.
This is not simulated. This is the real stuff. Okay. And then basically the next object will be a Roomba. I will not cover it today, but it is sort of, it kind of is involved in this whole understanding of the home space.
刚才大家听到的一段对话是真实的这个场景的对话，不是我们事先模拟的。
Right. And so this is the closing. Is that what I'm trying to say with this talk is that voice assistants and I guess technology in general is developing its own way of communication, and it's expressed in different ways than we humans do. But in this sort of precarious time where we're kind of becoming more and more aware of the fact that the objects we make are becoming part of the Anthropocene layer, which means that they are becoming, part of this whole planetary ecosystem. Well, it might be good to start thinking about them in less hierarchical terms and start appreciating their own ways of communicating. The planet Earth made the human, without knowing that the human will probably one day end planet Earth, right? But so in the same way, we make technology and we can either make it submissive or we can also explore different ways of coexisting with it. Or at least, if we're not sort of sure whether this is a good thing or not, we can try to think about whether let's say at least the objects we have made so far could be used to their full potential instead of just kind of trying to shallowly and sort of a bit desperately mimic human beings.
因为在我发言的一开始呢，就跟大家介绍过，其实可能机器它们之间存在自己的语言、自己的沟通方式，所以我觉得作为人类呢，既然考虑到有越来越多的这个机器，越来越多的人工智能的这个产品进入到我们的这个周围，成为了这个最新的人类式的地质层的一个部分，我们应该把它作为我们整个地球的生态系统当中的一个部分来进行看待，我们应该用更为平等的，而不是居高临下的这种态度来看待我们周围的这些机器，地球孕育了人类的诞生，但是现在可能人类已经处在了要把地球毁灭的一个边缘。那么，同样的这种道理可以适用到人和机器的关系上面。所以下一次当我们跟机器进行沟通和交流的时候呢，应该给予更多的这种平等和尊重。
非常感谢 Vytautas 的分享，然后接下来我们就邀请 Vytautas 跟龙心如一起坐到台上来进行一个15分钟的简要对谈。然后这场对谈也比较有趣，因为 Vytautas 他也带了他的那个 Voice Assistant 作为我们的主持人，对。然后我们现在就欢迎两位上台，然后我这边也准备一个话筒给我们的 Virtual Moderator。
Oh yeah. Oh, so I have to. Oh, okay. I mean, I don't know. We can also just talk, right? But we also made this. We made this voice assistant. We had this idea that so Iris and me, we don't know each other that well. So we said, why don't we get a voice assistant to moderate this panel?
在后台的时候呢，我和林心如也说过，既然我们两人不是非常的熟，但是要进行这样一场对话的话，为什么不让我们的这个语音助手来做我们之间的一个主持人呢？
But while I start, maybe you can talk some stuff, right? Does anybody have any questions regarding any of our talks, or is it?
既然两位嘉宾都已经做了他们的发言，那么现在也可以看看听众当中是不是有什么问题需要问我们的两位嘉宾。
Okay.
Yeah, we can just talk whatever.
Okay, I have a question. Thank you so much for the amazing talk. And I really like the point that Vytautas pointed in the end, that human beings have been, treating nature as if there was a hierarchy of us being on top and the rest are, dominated by human being. And I feel like we're doing it again to the machine, even though we created them. But I was just wondering, maybe is it possible, like sometime down the path that the machine will break the hierarchy, as Elon Musk and the other people are warning that they will really take over the world and really destroy us or something like that. So, what do you think? Because it's very a highly debated topic. I was just wondering, what do you two think about this possibility?
我们的这个问题呢是问杨卡乌什卡斯的，因为在他的发言的最后呢，他也谈到了人类对于这个自然的一个态度，似乎是一种居高临下的态度。那么对于我们所创造出来的这些机器和人工智能呢，也是这样的一种态度。问题呢就是，是不是有可能有一天这些机器会打破人的这种主导，颠覆现在人和机器的这么一种关系？就像埃隆·马斯克曾经所说过的那样，人工智能可能有一天会颠覆我们的人类社会，摧毁我们的人类社会，主导我们的人类社会。不知道Jankauskas 对这个问题是怎么看的
？Should I answer? Do you want to answer?
Yeah, sorry. I mean, I want to ask both of them. So,
cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I'm actually pretty cautious about this hierarchical way of the way we order things. So and also if you think about the trajectory of technological developments, you will realize that there is this tendency that we do not think technology as a external being. It really become so interlaced with our everyday life and also like the planetary system. So it's a very how do you say, like it's not something that you can just externalize. And also, for example, like Donna Haraway was recently talking about using the word action instead of interaction. So it's like we think about the relationship as within something bigger. So and the previous binary solutions won't really be effective in this context. And also, what was I trying to say? Never mind. 忘记了，太困了。
我不会简单的说我们跟人类跟机器之间的关系是一种自上而下的这种主导型的关系因为在我看来技术的发展已经成为我们生活和整个星球的一个部分，我们很难把技术或者说机器本身作为一个外部化的因素或者变量来考虑与其说我们跟技术之间存在着这样的一种对立二元的关系，不如说我们跟机器之间是一种共生的内在的关系。
Thank you.
I just want to say that this is like, again, it's very, all of these visions are very 70s driven. And the problem is that not even 70s, but it actually has a very much longer religious kind of backdrop to it, to, human being made in the image of God, Western religions, and then followingly machine, embracing the image of a human, but within the control of human, which is, it's sort of, it only works to the extent to which we can somehow emulate the human brain into a machine. And I think that this is already a fundamentally wrong approach towards a machine whatsoever. As I said, machine language is not this. Therefore, this I'm saying that there's plenty of species in the world that are not interested in overtaking anything. They're just interested in eating leaves or I don't know, making compost and stuff. So the fact that we make machines that are trying to rule upon everything is sort of very well mirroring kind of this human's image of what it means to hold power.
其实我觉得我谈到的一些观点呢，可能最早已经出现在上个世纪70年代或者更早，我们在宗教当中就已经会出现这样的一些说法。当然，我指的是西方的宗教，那就是上帝创造了人，上帝按照自己的形象创造了人，而现在人呢，试图按照自己的形象去创造这个机器。我觉得除非我们能够完全的把人类的大脑移植到这个机器当中去，否则我们这样看待机器是一种错误的视角。因为在地球上面可能有非常非常多的物种，他们的这个终极目标并不是为了能够统治这个地球，统治这个世界，他们只是希望能够自己安安静静的能够吃几片叶子，产生一点化肥，肥料，就是这么一件事情。所以我觉得我们应该认识到机器它本身有他们自己的语言，有自己的沟通方式，而不仅仅是人的一种镜像的复刻。
Okay, thank you.
Any other question? I think we prefer our audience's questions not to a machine. But we can put the machine as a backdrop, but yeah. There's one question out there.
Thank you. Thank you. I have a question regarding the carbon footprint of AI. And today there's a very hot topic. If it's not hotter than AI, will be the climate change, and at least Europe and China are on the same page and putting a strategic priority on carbon neutrality. And as throughout the lectures, the talks you guys gave, both of you mentioned like how much energy we have to use to train the data, to get the data, train the data, and to have the very personalized application, like the title of the article you cite, Iris, it take planetary resource to just to train the Alexa of Amazon, So here's my question. And do you think it's very conflicting between the process to achieve the excellency of this AI artificial intelligence and carbon neutrality? And how can you, if you do think so, how can you reconcile it? And let me be very specific for you, Mr. Jankauskas. And for your design, WeLeak 2 or the smart mirror, have you thought about the carbon neutrality? Is it like a carbon neutrality friendly? 这个我的问题比较长，我就直接自己翻译了，让翻译大哥休息一下。其实我的问题是关于这个碳消耗的一个问题，关于人工智能碳消耗的问题。是今天如果说跟人工智能相比的话，可能还有一个非常热门的话题，就是关于气候变化。至少在欧洲和中国在这一点上都提出了碳中和作为一个技术性的一个首选，一个策略性的首选，来解决这个气候变化的问题。今天下午的讲座，两位也提到了，在这个整个过程人工智能过程中，我们需要大量的数据来培训这些数据，以达到一些人工智能的功能，各种各样的功能，而且是一个持续性的。所以这个过程需要消耗很多的资源。正如一篇那个龙小姐引用的那篇文章也说了，为了达到亚马逊的语音智能系统 Alexa 的那种智能程度，可能要消耗是行星级的那个资源。所以这就是我的问题，你觉得两位觉得是不是那个现在的人工智能的开发和碳中和这样的目标，我们作为人类接下来解决气候问题最主要的碳中和作为一种策略的目标，是不是有矛盾的地方？如果是有的话，你怎么样去调和？如果放在一个更具体的例子，比如Vytautas先生他在设计他的作品 WeLeak 2和那个智能镜子的同时，他有没有考虑是不是这是符合一个碳达峰的碳中和的一个设计标准？谢谢。
I'm really curious how many artists will consider carbon neutrality when they do create an actual piece. It's like, is this part of the thing that you must consider when doing an artwork? I'm not quite sure, but yes, but I totally agree that this idea of planetary computation and how much resources or this like massive amount of I mean, Kate Crawford actually uses the term extravitism 采掘主义 to describe the situation that this convenient system is actually based on in a way irreversible process of extravagating our geological, the Earth itself. And also another layer here is that it's also, geographically, it's actually not equally distributed. So like, for example, when we say like massive data collection and where the data is collected and where it is labeled and where it is processed, and on the hardware layer, it's actually we're not talking about the same place. So we have like this data process intensive places and also like data labor intensive places, and this the borders of this area are unnecessarily in accordance with our traditional, let's say, national borders or like geographical borders. So we are talking about a new kind of structure, like over on top of our the actual Earth. And I don't really think that as you said, like carbon neutrality is or has become the consensus of the tech giants who are working on a better model or working on the the better performances of the algorithms. But there are some cases, like for example, the article that I referred to actually was questioning whether there will be new possibilities that we can, for example, use super small data sets to achieve similar results. In this sense, we don't rely on the previous way of relying on tremendous data sets, and then we can use, for example, in natural language processing, there is data sets called MINIST, MINST. So basically, it's a super small data set, and then people are experimenting with new ways of generating similar results with a rather smaller data set. So maybe I'm not sure, but maybe this will be a direction for machine learning. So we don't require that much original data, and then we can, by improving the models, we can find a solution to that.
我也不知道究竟有多少艺术家在进行艺术创作的时候呢，会真的去考虑碳中和这么一个问题。我本人也非常的感兴趣，但是确实不得不承认在人工智能的设计过程当中，在进行这个大数据培训的过程当中呢，确实会使用到非常多的资源。就像 Croft 在他的这个挖掘主义的一本书当中所谈到的那样，我们日常生活当中所获得的每一个便利，其实背后都有着对于资源不可再生的一种消耗或不可持续的一种消耗。现在呢，这个很多的科技巨头们在碳中和这个问题上面也没有完全的达成一致。在数据的这个采集、数据的存储、数据的标签和数据的处理上面呢，也是可能会发生在不同的地方，所以我们很难用传统的这种国境线来看待这个碳排放的一个总量或者碳达标的一个标准，因为很多的这种数据的流动或数据的处理，它其实都是跨越国境的，我们可能需要换一种层级性的结构来看待这个问题。虽然各大科技企业在碳中和问题本身上面的观点现在还没有趋向完全的一致，但是也有这么一种趋势，那就是利用更好的算法来减少人工智能对于这个海量数据的依赖，来减少在训练人工智能过程当中所需要消耗的能源和数据。我想这可能是未来解决这方面问题的一个可行的出路。
So yeah, just to answer the question briefly, is my work carbon neutral? Definitely not. Am I thinking about it? Definitely a lot. That's one of the reasons why I haven't yet made a project that would be about climate change that I deeply care about. Is because I still haven't found a way to personally deal with it, right? And this is one of the sort of crucial points that is probably we're reflecting on today. And one of my problems actually with, for example, artworks dealing with climate change or just the whole organizational structure is that we, in the recent years, we tend to jump onto topics and exhaust them. So everybody's suddenly talking about climate change. Before everybody was talking about data privacy or something. And then we do, an array of exhibitions about it, exhaust the topic, and then move on to something else. So let's say if nobody cares anymore about data privacy, well, we can sort of move on, right? But if we don't care about climate change after a year of intensively talking about it and then getting tired of it in the art world, then, well, we will have a problem for another 100 of years that the art will just not be interested in, or it will not be popular, right, to show these projects. Anyway, so this is just one thing. And then the second thing is, related to the algorithmic intensity. I just generally... I'm a bit upset by the current research. I say that in the 70s, there was a music genre called synth pop where whoever had the newest synthesizer could do the best thing, right? So now Google is like doing, okay, last time we had a machine learning, like natural language model with 20 billion parameters. Now we have 40 billion parameters, and they just calculate and calculate. And then they drop it, they drop the bone to a smaller researcher and say, now you make it resource friendly. Now you make it carbon neutral. We're going to be working on 120 billion, parameters. So this is, do we call this research? Questionable, right? And I think, like art's role in a way is to also highlight it and stuff. But carbon neutrality is something we should all think about a bit more.
碳中和呢，确实是一个非常大的问题。你要问我设计的这个装置，它究竟有没有实现碳中和？当然不是。我在设计的过程当中有没有考虑到碳中和这个问题？当然也没有。 我为什么没有着手考虑碳中和或者说这个碳减排的这个问题？主要是因为我还没有找到一个合适的方式，在我的日常生活当中真正的去应对它。在整个艺术界呢，我们往往都有一种跟风的问题。一旦我们发现一个热点，我们就会把所有的资源集中在上面，直到把这个问题翻个底朝天，然后呢，人们就会转移他们的兴趣，转向另外一个热点，重新的再一窝蜂一拥而上。但是对于这个气候变化，对于碳排放这样的一个问题，我们如果先集中精力扑在这个问题上面，然后把里面所有的问题都已经穷尽掉，接下来我们失去了对它的这个兴趣，转移到其他地方去，那么可能就会为我们今后更长时间的这个艺术发展，甚至人类的发展带来非常非常多的隐患。另外一点呢，就是我们知道，这个人工智能的发展过程当中呢，会伴随着海量的这个数据的使用。当然，在人工智能产生的初期，它可能需要的这个数据量呢也不是非常非常的大。但是到了现在，我们简直不知道用什么样的合适的单位来描述人工智能在培训的过程当中所需要使用得到这样的一个数据量了。像谷歌这样的公司，他们对人工智能的训练已经达到了极其海量的一个地步，在数据的使用量上面，我们不可能一边在使用着如此大量的这个数据的同时，另外一方面又要求别人减少数据的使用，要减少自己的碳排放，实现碳中和，这个事情看上去就会显得非常的拧巴，没有办法自圆其说，所以恐怕现在这个问题还不是我们能够深入思考的。
Should we give one last question to the algorithm, or should we, or are we closing?
I think we can leave the last question to the voice assistant.
Yeah, let's try. Okay, wait a minute. It takes some time. Do we hear it? Just to have a non-human perspective. Sorry, my computer is very old. Come on. Oh no, it didn't say it. Okay, well, the question was, it was for me. It says, Vytautas, in terms of human language simulation, what about the possibility of language processing being a part of the machine rather than a separate operation? I have no idea what the hell you're talking about. Okay. Do you want to answer that? No. Okay, well, we tried. It's okay. I will put it online somewhere. You can consult the. Anyway, thank you.
维塔斯刚才这个读出了这个人工语音智能系统给出的一个问题，这个问题呢，维塔斯本人呢也没有能够理解究竟是什么问题，大概说的是就人类语言模仿这个过程，什么时候能够把人类语言的模仿过程变成机器学习的一个部分，而不是独立于其外的一个部分，而维塔斯表示他实在是也没能理解这个问题。
对。
所以非常感谢大家能在今天下午来到西安美术馆参加我们这场讲座。那么这场讲座作为 AI 泛技术与艺术系列活动中的一场，然后我们接下来在下周末也会邀请到3位艺术家、学者以及策展人对相关领域进行一场对谈以及讲座。所以我们现在有个活动的问卷，也希望大家能扫码填写一下，帮助我们以后更好的优化我们的活动。对，非常感谢大家的参与，祝大家拥有一个美好的下午，谢谢大家。